A 42-year-old woman steps into Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom for what should have been a routine speeding ticket. But before he can even complete a single sentence, she's already talking over him. Her constant interruptions, dismissive tone, and refusal to listen push America's most patient judge to his limit, setting the stage for a confrontation you won't forget. This is the story of Karen Whitfield, and it shows exactly what happens when unchecked entitlement collides with unyielding justice. It also reveals why Judge Caprio's response became a masterclass in dealing with disruptive behavior. Where are you watching from today? Chicago, London, Miami? Drop your location in the comments, because this lesson on courtroom respect and personal accountability applies everywhere. And if you've ever dealt with someone who simply won't stop interrupting, hit the like button and share your most frustrating story below. You're about to see why repeatedly interrupting Judge Caprio was the worst decision Karen could have made, and, ironically, the wake-up call she desperately needed. This story will make you appreciate the power of listening, and the consequences of believing your voice matters more than everyone else's. Stay until the end, because Judge Caprio's final words to her will give you chills. It's a Tuesday morning at 10:15 a.m. inside the Providence Municipal Court. Judge Frank Caprio begins reviewing the day's docket: parking violations, minor traffic citations, the usual cases that keep the court running smoothly. But one file stands out: Karen Whitfield, age 42. Cited for driving 65 miles per hour in a 35 miles per hour school zone. The officer's notes mention an argumentative attitude and refusal to accept the citation calmly. Judge Caprio, now in his late 70s, is known for his Zen-like patience. He has presided over thousands of cases, met every personality imaginable, and mastered the art of keeping order while showing compassion. But today, his patients will face a challenge unlike any other. About 20 people sit in the gallery, waiting for their cases. Mrs. Rodriguez reviews her parking ticket paperwork quietly. 3 college students whisper nervously about their noise citation. Officer Thompson, the one who wrote Karen's ticket, sits in the back row, concern already visible in his expression. The stenographer, Janet Mills, adjusts her equipment, her 30 years of experience telling her this case might be interesting. At 10:20 a.m., the bailiff calls Karen's name. She strides through the doors wearing an elegant business suit, designer handbag, perfectly styled blonde hair, and an expression that makes it clear she believes she has more important places to be. Karen Whitfield owns a thriving real estate agency in Providence's upscale East Side. She has built her career on aggressive negotiation, talking over clients and competitors, and refusing to accept no as an answer. Her approach is simple: overwhelm others with verbal force. But Judge Caprio's courtroom is not a real estate closing, and judicial authority is not up for negotiation. Good morning, Ms. Whitfield, Judge Caprio begins, his tone calm and respectful. You're here regarding a speeding citation issued on Elmwood Avenue. Before Your Honor, I need to explain something immediately. Karen cuts in, not even letting him finish. That speed limit sign is completely hidden by tree branches. The city hasn't maintained proper visibility. Judge Caprio's expression tightens just slightly, the first crack in his legendary patience. Ms. Whitfield, I understand you have concerns, but if you would please, Your Honor, I pay substantial property taxes in this city, over $18,000 annually, and I think that gives me the right to expect properly maintained signage that doesn't endanger law-abiding citizens who, ma'am, you need to, who are simply trying to conduct business efficiently in a city that should be supporting local entrepreneurs instead of creating obstacles through poorly designed traffic enforcement clearly intended for revenue generation. The stenographer pauses her typing. Officer Thompson shakes his head. Mrs. Rodriguez clutches her purse. The college students stare, wide-eyed. Judge Caprio carefully sets his paperwork down, a subtle gesture familiar to those who know he's nearing the limits of his patience. Ms. Whitfield, I'm going to need you to, Your Honor, I've been researching municipal traffic law, and I believe there are constitutional issues with due process when, stop. The single word cracks through the room like thunder. Karen actually steps back, stunned that anyone, let alone a judge, would interrupt her. Judge Caprio rises slowly, his presence radiating absolute authority. The entire courtroom goes still. Ms. Whitfield, he says calmly, you have been in my courtroom for 4 minutes, and in that time you have interrupted me 7 times. This behavior is unacceptable. Karen's eyes flare with indignation. Your Honor, I was simply trying to explain the circumstances. 8 times, Judge Caprio says sharply. You've interrupted me 8 times. And you just did it again. Karen opens her mouth to argue, but the judge raises his hand. The firm gesture and the steel in his eyes finally make her hesitate. In my courtroom, he says, there is an order. I speak, you listen. I ask questions, you answer. I do not request lengthy lectures about traffic engineering, tax rates, or your personal opinions on how the city is run. Karen's cheeks flush a deep red. 2 decades of running meetings, dominating negotiations, and bulldozing through conversations have left her completely unprepared for someone who cannot be overpowered. She tries again. Your Honor, I have a right to defend myself against charges that are clearly, 9 times, Judge Caprio says, cutting her off again. Ms. Whitfield, this is not a business meeting where the loudest voice wins. This is a court of law. Respect and procedure guide what happens here. Karen switches tactics. In real estate, persistence always works, eventually. She decides to double down. Your Honor, with all due respect, I think you're being unnecessarily rigid about these procedural formalities when the real issue is municipal negligence. The city failed to maintain that sign, which creates liability exposure, and Judge Caprio's voice drops to a calm, icy register that somehow carries more force than a shout. Ms. Whitfield, you have now interrupted me 9 times. Your behavior shows contempt for this court, disrespect for the judicial process, and complete disregard for proper courtroom conduct. But Your Honor, 10. The courtroom freezes. Officer Thompson looks alarmed. The stenographer's fingers fly across the keys. Karen's face burns with frustration and humiliation. Your Honor, I'm simply trying to present a defense against what I believe is an unjust citation based on municipal failures. That Judge Caprio removes his glasses, wipes them slowly, and looks at her with a stare sharpened by 40 years on the bench. Ms. Whitfield, he says, let me explain something about respect and authority. He steps away from the bench, a rare move, placing himself directly in front of her, close enough that she cannot escape eye contact. In your business, you may be used to talking over people. You may be accustomed to dominating conversations and wearing others down through sheer persistence. But that behavior ends the moment you walk through the doors of this courtroom. For the first time, Karen is silent. Not because she understands, but because she's momentarily stunned. You walked in here believing your tactics would work, he continues. You thought you could overwhelm me with rapid-fire explanations, challenge my authority with persistence, and talk your way to the outcome you wanted. Judge Caprio returns to his bench, but his presence now fills every inch of the room. Karen stands before him, her confidence stripped away. Ms. Whitfield, your original citation was for speeding in a school zone. The fine was $185, plus $50 in court costs. A simple matter that should have taken 3 minutes. Karen fidgets with her handbag, suddenly unsure of herself. Instead, your conduct this morning has created a far more serious issue. Your repeated interruptions, your argumentative tone, and your disregard for courtroom procedure constitute contempt of court. The words hit her like ice water. In her world, aggression is power. Talking over people is strategy. Refusing to back down is strength. but this isn't her world, Your Honor, I didn't mean any disrespect. I was simply 11, he says quietly, her jaw snaps shut. Ms. Whitfield, criminal contempt is punishable by up to 6 months in jail and fines up to $1,000. Your behavior has taken a routine traffic matter and escalated it into a potential criminal issue. The fear on Karen's face is unmistakable, and furthermore, Judge Caprio continues, your inability to display basic respect raises questions about your professional conduct. The Rhode Island Department of Business Regulation takes these matters seriously. Your real estate license could be affected. Karen's face drains of color. That license represents 15 years of work, clients, and financial security. It is her identity, Your Honor, surely you can't. The look he gives her stops the sentence cold. Finally, she's beginning to read the room. Miss Whitfield, Judge Caprio says, his tone firm but measured, I want you to understand something. What you've done this morning isn't just disrespect toward me personally. You've shown contempt for a justice system that relies on mutual respect and orderly procedure. He gestures toward the gallery, where other defendants sit watching in absolute silence, the weight of his words settling over the room. In your line of work, Miss Whitfield, maybe you've learned that the loudest voice wins, that interrupting, dominating, and overrunning a conversation gets results. He pauses, letting that idea linger, but there are places in our society where those tactics don't just fail, they lead to real consequences. For the first time all morning, Karen nods, just slightly. It's the first sign she might actually be listening instead of planning her next outburst. This courtroom is one of those places, he continues, here, respect is not negotiable. Order is not optional. And authority does not depend on your approval, or your aggressive bargaining. Judge Caprio leans back, the sternness in his face softening into something almost paternal. The courtroom remains frozen, every person aware they're witnessing a turning point. Miss Whitfield, he says, I'm going to do something I rarely do. I'm going to give you a choice. Karen looks up, a flicker of hope crossing her face, but the judge's expression shows this is not the kind of negotiation she's used to. Choice 1, he says plainly, I hold you in criminal contempt. You pay maximum fines, face possible jail time, and deal with the consequences for your real estate license. And frankly, your behavior today fully justifies that outcome. Karen's face drains of color. Choice 2, he says. You show me that you can learn from this experience. But that choice comes with conditions, non-negotiable conditions. He leans forward, his voice firm but unexpectedly compassionate. If you choose the second option, you will remain in this courtroom for the next hour. You will observe how other cases are handled. You will watch how respectful defendants interact with this court. You will see how order and mutual respect create an environment where justice actually works. Karen starts to respond but stops herself, giving only a quiet nod. During that hour, Judge Caprio continues, you will not speak unless spoken to. You will watch how effective communication happens when people listen more than they talk, when they respect the process instead of forcing their agenda. He goes on, his conditions unwavering. After observing other cases, you will return to address your original speeding citation. At that time, you will demonstrate that you understand how proper courtroom conduct works. Judge Caprio rises again, commanding the room with his presence. But here's what I need you to truly understand, Miss Whitfield, he says, stepping closer, your behavior today isn't just about courtroom rules. It's about respect, basic respect for people and for the systems that hold our society together. He stands directly before her now, speaking to her, not the courtroom. In your career, you've succeeded by overpowering people, Judge Caprio continues, by talking louder and faster than everyone else, by refusing to ever back down. Maybe those tactics work in real estate negotiations, but they fail disastrously in relationships, in community spaces, and in any environment that requires cooperation. He gestures toward Mrs. Rodriguez, still seated quietly and patiently waiting for her case. Mrs. Rodriguez hasn't interrupted anyone today. She hasn't demanded special treatment because of her tax payments or accomplishments. She has given this process the same respect she hopes to receive in return. His eyes return to Karen. So here's your choice, Miss Whitfield. You can continue believing that aggression and verbal domination are signs of strength and effectiveness. If you choose that path, then I will treat you as someone who prefers conflict over cooperation, and you will face the full consequences of contempt of court. Karen shakes her head slightly, a flicker of genuine humility appearing for the first time. Or, he continues, you can recognize that there are places where listening matters more than speaking, where respect accomplishes more than force, and where understanding someone else's perspective leads to better outcomes than shouting over them. Judge Caprio returns to his bench. What's your decision, Miss Whitfield? Karen takes a deep, steadying breath. When she finally speaks, her voice is soft, respectful for the first time. Your Honor, I choose to learn. I want to observe how this court works. Judge Caprio nods approvingly. Ms. Whitfield, please take a seat in the back row. For the next hour, you will observe, without comment, how respectful interaction with this court functions. Karen walks to the back, her designer heels tapping lightly against the floor. For perhaps the first time in years, she is preparing to listen rather than dominate. Mrs. Rodriguez, please approach the bench. The elderly woman rises nervously, clutching her parking ticket. Karen watches as she walks respectfully toward the judge. Good morning, Your Honor, she says gently, in accented English. I am here about parking ticket. Judge Caprio's entire demeanor shifts, warm, patient, genuinely attentive. Tell me what happened, Mrs. Rodriguez, he asks. Your Honor, I park in front of my daughter's house to help with new baby. I stay too long in 2-hour parking. I know I break rule, but baby was crying and daughter needed help. Karen watches, unexpectedly moved, as Judge Caprio listens fully before responding. And how much was the fine? He asks. $75, Your Honor. It is difficult because I am on fixed income, but I know I did wrong. The judge considers this for a moment. Mrs. Rodriguez, you took responsibility. You respected this court. You explained your situation honestly. He looks down at the citation. Fine reduced to $25, payable within 60 days. And congratulations on becoming a grandmother. Mrs. Rodriguez's face glows with relief. Thank you, Your Honor. You are very kind. She walks past Karen with a warm smile. Karen realizes she has just witnessed something her aggressive business world has no room for. Respect. Next, a group of college students steps forward, nervous but polite. Your Honor, we're here about the noise complaint at our apartment. One of them says, tell me what happened. Judge Caprio asks, giving them his full attention. We had a party that got too loud. Our neighbor called the police, and we were cited for disturbing the peace. We're really sorry. Karen watches intently as Judge Caprio questions them gently, listens to their explanation about midterm stress and poor judgment. Ultimately, Judge Caprio assigns the students community service at a local senior center. They will spend 20 hours assisting elderly residents with technology and daily activities, learning firsthand that being a good neighbor means considering how your actions affect others. The students accept the assignment gratefully, thanking the judge for providing a constructive way to make amends. An hour later, Judge Caprio calls Karen back to address her original speeding citation. She approaches the bench, but her demeanor has completely transformed. The aggressive posture, impatient fidgeting, and presumptuous attitude are gone. Miss Whitfield, Judge Caprio begins, you have observed how this court operates when respect is shown. Are you ready to address your speeding citation appropriately? Karen nods. Yes, Your Honor. Tell me the circumstances of your citation. Karen inhales deeply, choosing her words carefully. Your Honor, I was driving 65 miles per hour in a 35 miles per hour school zone on Elmwood Avenue. Officer Thompson stopped me and issued the citation. I was speeding because I was running late for a business appointment, and I prioritized my schedule over public safety. Judge Caprio notes the clear shift in her approach, accepting responsibility rather than making excuses. I argued with Officer Thompson during the stop because I was frustrated about being late. I was disrespectful to him, just as I was initially disrespectful to you in this court. She glances toward the gallery, where a few defendants still wait. Your Honor, watching how you handled other cases today showed me something I've been missing in business and in life. When people feel respected and heard, they respond honestly and cooperatively. When they feel attacked, they become defensive and dishonest. I spent 15 years in real estate believing aggressive tactics and verbal dominance represented strength and effectiveness. Today, I realize that approach creates conflict rather than solving problems. Judge Caprio nods, seeing genuine insight rather than rehearsed words. Your Honor, I violated the speed limit in a school zone, putting children at risk because I thought my business appointment was more important than public safety. I accept the full consequences of that choice. I owe you, Officer Thompson, and everyone in this courtroom an apology for my earlier disrespect. I came here expecting special treatment because of my business success and taxes. Judge Caprio studies her for a long moment, his decades of experience recognizing a genuine transformation. Miss Whitfield, you've demonstrated something remarkable today. You've shown that people can learn, change their approach, and choose respect over aggression when they understand the consequences of their behavior. Karen nods, waiting respectfully for him to continue. Your original fine was $185 plus $50 in court costs. However, your willingness to learn and your genuine apology deserve recognition. I am reducing your fine to $100 plus court costs. But more importantly, you've learned a lesson that will serve you far beyond this courtroom. Respect for others and respect for process produces better outcomes than aggressive tactics ever will. Judge Caprio extends his hand. Miss Whitfield, I hope you'll carry this lesson into your business dealings, your personal relationships, and your interactions with public officials. Karen accepts the handshake gratefully. Your Honor, this has been the most valuable business lesson I've ever received. Thank you for your patience and wisdom. As she leaves the courtroom, she pauses to apologize personally to Officer Thompson, who nods approvingly at her transformed attitude. Karen Whitfield's story reminds us all that true strength isn't about overwhelming others with our voice, it's about respecting their right to be heard. Judge Frank Caprio proves once again that the best teaching doesn't come through punishment alone but through showing a better way to interact with the world. Here's the question for all of us: how often do we interrupt others because we believe our thoughts are more important? When was the last time we truly listened instead of just waiting for our turn to speak? Karen learned that in courtrooms, boardrooms, and living rooms alike, respect for others and respect for process creates far better outcomes than aggression ever could. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is stop talking and start listening. If this story made you reflect on your own communication, hit like, subscribe for more Judge Caprio wisdom, and share in the comments a time when listening changed everything for you. Remember Karen's hard-earned lesson: respect for others creates better outcomes than aggressive tactics ever will.